Today on the Foodscaper Podcast, I am joined by Luci Imbach of Island Harvest, a builder, a grower, an entrepreneur, carving out a really unique path on Nantucket Island. We're going to talk about what it takes to build an edible landscaping business in such a distinctive place, how attention to detail can shape and craft a company, and the ways that lifestyle, like surfing, podcasting, even TikToking, intersects with entrepreneurship. Luci, thank you so much for being here. To get us started, give us the download on who you are and what Island Harvest is all about.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm psyched to be here. My name's Luci Imbach. I'm 31 years old, live on the island of Nantucket, Massachusetts, and am the owner operator of Island Harvest, which has been in business this is our 5th season. And we are Nantucket's only foodscaping operation. We have a big maintenance program where we take care of gardens all over the island. And we also do some design and construction in the off season. So we're just trying to take care of these edible spaces out here and make them look good and help people enjoy them.
Yeah. Well, I have been super inspired by your work. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. But just going through all of your pictures and social media and stuff like that in the preparation for this podcast, I was just psyched because I think that you have a really beautiful aesthetic and you're clearly doing such high quality work that I think could inspire a lot of other foodscapers. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying that.
You got your start, like so many of us, I read about, farming, gardening, being passionate about environmentalism. Like, tell us the story of wanting to jump into this work as a foodscape entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I've always been an environmentalist and I've always been really into food. I studied food systems at the University of Vermont, which is where I went to college. And then after school was working on farms and kind of learning more hands-on, like how to grow food. Moved out to Nantucket, was working on a farm out here and loved growing food. Like I knew that I loved farming but I also knew that I didn't necessarily want to be a farmer. So much respect for farmers. Like I have friends who are farmers and it's such important work. But I was looking for something with, I guess, more of a financial opportunity for me. And at the same time I was working on this farm, I was also helping a friend with some ornamental landscaping out here. And that just opened my eyes to how big the landscaping industry was out here.
Mhm.
And I saw a couple veggie gardens when we were doing our rounds and they just like weren't taken care of at all. And there's so many landscapers out here. It's so saturated and there's so much work, but there was no one doing veggies. And like I kind of just clicked in my mind. At the same time, I was listening to a lot of Encyclopedia Botanica, which is the Seattle Urban Farm Co. podcast. So I knew about them, did some Instagram research, found custom foodscaping, found other people doing this idea that I thought of. And I was like, why not me? Like, let's send it. So
yeah, let's send it.
Yeah.
We've got a guy on our team who loves the just gonna send it.
Yeah, let's send it.
Yeah, well done on just sending it and building a company. You said you're in your 5th year before we got started recording. So many of those things you mentioned really resonate with me. Like it wasn't until that I spent my days driving around in a truck and in the middle of the day, like not at a specific job location, that I realized that there's a million people in this landscaping world, like driving trucks all around town all day. And there's so much work out there. And yeah, to have like this niche that is within that world it's a really exciting time to be in foodscaping.
100%. Yeah.
And I also really resonated with what you said about just, farming and the idea that we might have more of a financial upside, potentially than some, small scale farming. But what we have that I feel like is of such great value, regardless, is like more flexibility. It's so much, it feels like I can take vacation more and just not be on every single day like I was when I was managing a farm.
Yeah.
It's just the demands of that are just so intense, and this feels like way easier to like have even just weekends, or just um,
Yeah. 100% farm. I agree. Farming, I loved it. I wasn't even managing the farm. I was just kind of working on it. But yeah, totally. Like it seems like such an endeavor. And that's why I have so much respect for people who do it, because you're wearing a million hats and you're responsible for so much, and it is so intense. And yeah, I was like, I don't know if I could do that for the rest of my life. It's really impressive to people who do it. But yeah, foodscaping is kind of that happy medium where it's like, okay, let's turn this into a business, yeah, that has that flexibility that you're talking about.
yeah. So give us the story about Nantucket. You're in a unique place. It's like kind of famous in my head, but I know nothing about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. Everyone like knows Nantucket, but nobody really knows Nantucket. Yeah, it is a very unique place, and I feel like I do owe a lot of the reason I've been able to make a living foodscaping to the uniqueness of it. So I think it's important to talk about. It's an island, like you said, and it's not an island that you can drive to. Like there's no bridge. You have to take a ferry to get here. Yeah,
Okay,
so
that's intense.
yeah. But at the same time, like we have a big grocery store. We have it's a bustling place. It's 30 miles out to sea. It's 14 miles wide and about 3.5 miles tall. And what's really cool about it is over half of the island is conservation land. So
Wow.
it's a really insanely beautiful place. It's kind of place where you go on vacation and come back to, and you're like, wow, this is even beautiful, more beautiful than where I
Hmm.
just was, um, which is awesome. And I think the other really unique thing about it is the population. So in the off season, there's 14,000 people who live here roughly year
Hmm.
round. And that's a lot of tradespeople, electricians, gardeners, carpenters, a lot of big immigrant population. And then in the summer, that 14,000 people goes to 80,000 people. And yeah, it's a really big shift. And there's this huge population of summer people that come in. A lot of them have homes, like summer homes here. And that population of people is extremely wealthy. Like the amount of concentrated wealth that's on this island is sometimes just mind boggling. And someone put it to me, someone who I look up to said to me once, if you can just carve out a tiny bit of those literally billions of dollars that are here during the summer, you can make a living. And so that's kind of what I think about all the time is with foodscaping, um, in basically, making a living and feeling lucky that I can do that here. I'll say the last thing I'll say about Nantucket that I think is worth mentioning is, as I mentioned earlier, the landscaping industry is huge. So people come out here because it's a beautiful place and they have a lot of income and they want their outdoor spaces to be taken care of. So landscape maintenance is built in to the culture here. It's almost as if gardens are like a form of cultural capital. They're almost like a status symbol. If you have a party, you want your window boxes and your roses and your garden looking like pristine. So I think that's helped me a lot in that the culture of garden maintenance is already built in here, in that I really don't have to sell that to anyone. Like having a maintenance service come and take care of your garden isn't a foreign thing. And I think that's worked in my benefit a lot.
Heck yeah, that's so awesome that you carved out that niche. Yeah, that means so much that people don't need an explanation of like, I can come take care of this vegetable garden for you, that there's kind of that built-in expectation that they're probably like, so can you come take care of it for us?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very common for people to have a crew of gardeners come to their house 3 times a week just to water and deadhead their pots on their deck. So that works in my favor, which is cool.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm always just really encouraged to hear about like small populations being served by people who are making a living doing foodscaping.
Hmm.
I got into this And I was really inspired by people like the Seattle Urban Farm Company that you mentioned, and other
Yeah.
people who are like in major markets, Atlanta and DC and
Hmm.
Seattle and Dallas. And I was like, ooh, St. Louis, is this a big enough market? Turns out, like it's a bajillion times bigger than Nantucket. And then there's all these other people who I've come to find through the Foodscaper that are in small markets and just having no problem making a living. Everybody's got to adapt to their unique situation, of course,
Yeah.
but it's super possible. You don't have to be in a big city. So,
Yeah, I find that really inspiring. I've always been so grateful to live in a place that feels like this is doable, and then looking at people who are doing it in places, like you said, that are a lot smaller is like, wow, that's really sick, really impressive.
one of the things we hear from pro foodscapers all the time is this need for more community, connection, and education. And that's why we've created the Foodscaper membership. This is our online forum and learning space just for pro foodscapers. You can share your work, get feedback from me and other professionals, and watch dozens of classes in our training library. It's just $29. First month is free. We would love to see you there. One of the things I was most excited to talk to you about is like carpentry, because for those listening that have made it this far in the podcast, and they I just really want to impress upon you all how sweet and sharp your carpentry skills are, and how I think you have a lot to offer the foodscaping community. And just in my deep dive of all your videos, I'm really noticing a lot of things, like super beveled edges everywhere and really tight corners and a real craftsmanship eye. This is not like, I feel like the work that you're doing is not somebody who like watched a YouTube video on how to build garden beds and then they were like out there the next week, building them for clients. You clearly have a lot of skills that you brought into this equation, and I'm sure you gained many along the way too. But what's the story of your carpentry skills and just skilling up in general beyond the plants? Because we're always, as foodscapers, we're like plant lovers and nature lovers.
Yeah, yeah.
The hard skills are so important to being good at this work.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Gosh, I need you on my shoulder like every day, cheering me on like that.
I'm
Because
here.
sometimes I look at things that I've built and I'm like, oh, you could have done that a little better. Or, I'm sure we all do that. But yeah, the carpentry I've come to really enjoy. I think a couple of things have gone into me being where I'm at with it. First and foremost, my husband is a furniture maker. So he's a really super talented woodworker. He has a shop in our basement. He has tons of tools, which is also great because we can share tools. And he started with, framing and rough carpentry and got to where he is now. So he kind of has the whole gamut of everything woodworking. So having him at my disposal to ask questions or, how would you do this? That's one thing. I think the other part of it is the year after I think the year after I started Island Harvest, we built this house that I'm sitting in, and it's on my in-laws' property. Housing is a real issue on Nantucket, so we're so lucky that we were able to build on their property, and we did the whole thing ourselves. So I went into that not really knowing much about carpentry. I think I had built maybe one or two gardens, and Baird, my husband, had kind of helped me with them. And we went into this house building process, and we did everything from framing to plumbing, electricity, the trim work. So that was 2 years of just crash course everything carpentry, and doing that alongside my husband, who, like I said, is super talented and he has that really really good eye for detail in things that you were describing. That has kind of brought me to where I am, combined with doing projects over the years and learning as I go, and YouTube University, and yeah, coming to where I am now, where I do feel like I could approach pretty much any project and confidently build that garden and know that it's well built, which I don't think I could say starting out. So yeah, that's kind of the story of the carpentry journey.
What a unique one. So cool that you built your own house and you've got like this, woodworker that is at your disposal. Is your husband your business partner, or do you two work together, or is he just like the never-ending resource for questions when you get home?
Yeah, basically the second one.
Okay.
He the first garden I built, he did it with me, and he was teaching me this is how you mark your measurement. This is how you use a chop saw. Like very from the very beginning, he did that build with me. And ever since then, he's just kind of been a resource. And like I said, we share a lot of tools, which is awesome. Because if I ever need to build a fancy gate or something, he's got industrial table saw and a planer and a jointer and a router table and everything I could ever need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that stuff is so intimidating if you don't have exposure to it. And I think that is such a blessing that you've, found that connection, but also just really speaks to the importance that we can't know it all. And like having people
Hmm.
in our lives who have complementary skill sets, even if they're not your husband, is just a vital key of being well resourced and connected, and
Yeah,
networking pays off in those regards.
definitely. Yeah. And I will say, I think so much of it is just having the confidence to and the curiosity to go into something and just try it. Like a lot of people will look at a project and be like, I can't do that. Like, that's crazy. But you have YouTube and you have the internet. Like, we can literally learn anything that we want to learn. It's one thing if you don't want to learn it, you don't have interest, fine. But
Yeah.
we're all capable, like I tell everyone that, like, we're so capable of doing really anything we want. With YouTube and the internet and friends who, networking. So I think just part of it is just going for it and going into it with curiosity and, getting your hands dirty.
Yeah. How have you wrestled with that question of like, well, I don't want to do this for the first time for a client,
Yeah.
and kind of feeling like, yeah, YouTube University is amazing for learning things, but sometimes it's like, I got to trial this.
Yeah.
I don't have the money or the time to just trial it on my own for free. Like this would cost me thousands of dollars in a week, and I can't just like piddle learning something like that for a week. I could put a few hours in on YouTube, but
Right. Yeah, totally. I think that was a big struggle with me in my first few years. I would literally, I'm not lying to you when I say I would have a pit in my stomach sometimes waking up in the morning and thinking, oh, did what I build yesterday, like, is it just totally fallen over and destroyed? Like, it's an irrational thought, but it, I know what you mean with like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but someone's paying me to do this, so I got to figure it out. And honestly, for me, it was a lot of just planning and thinking. I'm very type A, where I need a plan and I need a spreadsheet and I need to think this through and I
Mhm.
need a design to go off of. And I think I just feel so lucky having my husband there to be like, hey, if I build this gate like this, is it gonna totally sag and like not last? Um, so I guess I'm just lucky in that way that I have him there to refer to a lot, but it is something that I wrestled with in the beginning, and thankfully, I got through it, and I probably got a couple callbacks about, beds that might have been coming apart or whatever, but that's just kind of how you grow. And if you respond to those issues in the right way, you know, it's fine and you can grow from it and do better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to, I'll just bode on you a little bit more here because some of the things that you're mentioning, like, building a gate is one thing, but like hanging a gate properly so that it doesn't sag,
Hmm.
uh, that's been an issue for us. And
Yeah.
just some of the other aspects of like construction on site, those aren't necessarily carpentry things. So I want to get into those more later, but I just want to say that, yeah, those are other things that I'm really fascinated that you've learned and taken on. Um, Tell us while we're talking about carpentry, tell us about your lumber situation because Yeah, Nantucket doesn't sound like, you've got necessarily like you probably found yourself in a niche lumber situation.
Yeah, definitely. Nantucket does not have any hardwood sources here. It's all like pitch pine and scrub oak. Like there's no lumber here. So everything gets brought in. And Nantucket's interesting because it has a very strict building code. Like pretty
Mm,
much all the houses are built in the same style, which you might have seen in like TVs or movies. They're all in that cedar shake kind of classic look. It's really beautiful. But with that being said, there's tons of cedar here. Like cedar is king. All the trim is cedar, everything cedar, and people love that look because it's very Nantucket. But at the same time, we're not getting knotty cedar or cedar that's more affordable to use. We're getting clear cedar, which is I was doing a bid yesterday, and I think 2x8 material it was like $35 a foot. So thinking about building a garden out of that and raised beds gets insanely expensive. But it is a beautiful material and it matches the houses, which is great.
mhm.
So people who have that in their budget, it's awesome. It's really nice to work with. I love using cedar. But we've obviously had to come up with some kind of options for people who don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on just cedar, not even thinking about labor. So, what we've done, which might be a little controversial depending on who you ask, but what we've done is we've started using pressure treated wood, both for fences, obviously, but also beds. And that's kind of come from necessity. I obviously don't like using anything that's chemically, I'm using air quotes here, like chemically treated around edibles, but I've done the research and there's been studies, and the new stuff is totally safe to use with edibles. It's not treated with the gnarly, like arsenic and terrible chemicals that used to be used. And there have been studies shown that it's fine with edibles, it's barely reacting with the soil, and it's totally safe to use. So I know that probably might, maybe it's controversial for people to hear that we're doing that, but it's been a really good option for clients who don't want to spend so much money on cedar, but want their garden to last a long time. And yeah, I don't have any regrets doing it, and I think it's been a good option for us. So that's pretty much what we're left with is either clear cedar or pressure treated.
Yeah, we on an island like, in your situation, you got to adapt and figure it out. And I have heard similar things about pressure treated. We are lucky to have Eastern red cedar where I'm at, but
Yeah.
so we haven't really had to run up against this question, but I feel for you. It would be a hard one to make. And
Hmm.
there's a big like community gardening organization in St. Louis called Seed St. Louis that also has like took on the research and is dealing publicly with the community and came up with a similar conclusion. So
Hmm.
you're not alone out there.
Yeah, yeah. We got to do our best, and it wouldn't be my first choice if we had, some local like hemlock or something that was available to us. Like, no, but it's yeah, yeah. Like I said, we've done the research and it's safe. And I just educate clients. I'm like, hey, if you're not into the idea of chemicals, maybe it's not the choice for you, but we can assure you that, it's safe to use and it's a lot more affordable. So
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to transition us to talking more about your services here, because like so you're building out the gardens, right? Using one of those two lumber options, and then offering maintenance. You're offering like potentially like coaching, meeting with people. It sounds like
mhm.
what other anything else like I'm missing there, or any unique offerings that you have?
Yeah, it's pretty much the maintenance is our bread and butter, and then the construction services happen in the off season.
Yeah.
And I'll say like the maintenance isn't we have 30 something clients that are full maintenance clients, and then we also have somewhere around 10 that are just what we call spring plant outs.
Yeah.
So we'll do their spring planting for them and they take care of it. And we'll reach back out this time of year, like kind of in late July, August, and say, hey, you want another visit or a checkup for fall planting, or, to refresh. And if they do, then we do a stop. If not, we just kind of let them go. And then, fall cleanup happens in the fall. That's a big step. And then, in the off season, we're just doing construction. So, and then the coaching sessions are a thing too. I would say I don't do many of them for whatever reason. I find it's a lot of local people who will kind of find out through word of mouth about it. And I'll do those. And I really enjoy doing them because you're just kind of hanging out and talking about gardening with people. But yeah, I don't do too many of those, but they are an option for whoever's interested.
Yeah. I've been, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised because I don't necessarily love it, but I have been surprised, and sometimes I'm really happy about it. How when you reach back out to those people who said like no to the maintenance plan, they kind of are a yes, but they don't want to like commit. It's like, yeah, I want the refresh, and yeah, I want the end of season cleanup.
Right.
But they don't want to say like come out consistently because it feels like maybe too luxurious or too,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, doesn't fit their budget or their lifestyle. But turns out it actually did.
Yeah, totally. And like, that's cool. I honestly, when I meet people or come upon people who want to take care of their garden, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, you should take care of your garden. And any way we can help you, let us know. We're not trying to like squeeze in there and, let me take this. Like, I think it's great when people are into it. So, however we can help is good. And the full maintenance is obviously awesome. It's a good money maker and a good just keeps us busy. So
Yeah. Most of the challenge I run up against with this is not that you're not giving me the opportunity to come do like full maintenance. It's that it's really harder in my experience to do maintenance when you're not involved in the project from the beginning and kind of seeing it through. So it's way easier to be unprepared or to have like some unique challenges show up that you weren't thinking you'd find when you're not
yeah,
there. And then it's just harder to make clients really happy
yeah,
because the garden isn't the dream that they maybe had in their heads, but they're like, but Lucy, helped my garden this year. And then it's kind of like, well, I kind of did, but
yeah,
the reason your tomatoes aren't doing so awesome is because like you only had me out in August, and I
totally. Yeah, I've definitely had a few of those. I can think of one in particular, who, didn't want to do the full maintenance and then hit us up in like July and was like, I think I need your guys' help. And, we go out there and nothing's pruned and there's blight everywhere. And we're like, all right, we can take it from here, but there's only so much we can do at that point. So that happened last season. And that was a good lesson for communicating to new clients who are kind of on the fence. They're like, well, I kind of like taking care of it, but I don't know, maybe I could use some help. I tell them like, listen, we'll come and help you when we need to, but once things get out of control, there's only so much we can do. So if you're questioning it, it might be good for the first year to just send it with the full maintenance, because
yeah,
that's definitely a thing. It's hard to step in after you haven't had control over so much, and there's only so much you can do.
yeah. And what does full maintenance mean? Like, what's that package entail for you?
Yeah, so it always starts, both the maintenance and just the spring plant outs start with a Google form that we send out, which
Mhm.
is basically just takes you through all the veggies that we grow. You can kind of rate them. I think it's like 1 through 5 based on how much you like them, cook with them, etc. And we use that to inform a crop plan, which is like a bird's eye view of the garden to scale. And we fill that out based on your survey input. Um, and usually there's a main season and a late season layout
Yeah.
when things get switched over. So that we can give that to the client in the spring and be like, hey, here's your crop plan. What do you think? then they can make any changes that they want, which is really nice for us to know they've signed off on this, like, here's what we need. And then that allows us to kind of go to the greenhouse, make a spreadsheet, know what we need for that season, arrive at the gardens, get everything planted out over the course of a couple visits. And then for full maintenance, once it's planted out, we visit either weekly or biweekly, depending on the size of the garden. And we're just doing, pruning, trellising, pests and disease control, replanting, a lot of succession planting, and then harvesting, because that's a big part of plant health too. And then in the fall, they get fall cleanup, like I said, and then start it all over the next year.
Yeah. Taking a quick break to remind you about our monthly Pro Talks. These are free, live, continuing education classes taught by some of the most inspiring ecological, edible landscapers in the business. These Pro Talks give you Foodscaper education that you truly can't find anywhere else. So join us each month. If you're a member, you'll also get the recording. Enroll in the next Pro Talk at foodscaper.com/Pro Talks. One of the things that I am really curious about is the fact that you have your own greenhouse, and it seems like you're growing out your own seedlings. Is that right?
Yep.
And so I want to hear more about that, but before I do, I just want to say that to be able to do that, in my experience, means you have to have a decent idea of all the people's crop plans going into the winter, because you're starting all these seeds in like potentially February. I don't know enough about your climate, but you want to be getting all this stuff going in February, but you'd already have to have all the client questionnaires back and crop plans made and your spreadsheet figured out to be able to get a good guess as to what your seedling needs are going to be for the year. And then that's why I've just been like I can't even, this is too much, too many pieces. Like, I'm just going to go get things from the suppliers in town.
Yeah.
So I have deep respect for you for like being that on it and organized. Walk us through what that process looks like for you.
Yeah, it is a little bit of that. You definitely want to know what you're dealing with going into it. And we do start onions late February, sometimes early March. So that's kind of our timeline. And we've kind of gotten to the point now where, we know how many clients we had last year, and we know we needed this many onions last year. And I usually just start like 20 to 30% more than I think that we'll need, just because, soil's pretty cheap and seeds are cheap, and we'd rather have it and not need it than, need it and not have it. So it's kind of going off of last year's data a little bit to start. And then once we have those crop plans coming in, which doesn't usually happen until like April, I would say, I start getting those together. So for the most part, we're going off of last year. Usually I'll know like, oh, this is a new client for this year and their garden is this big. So let's just keep extrapolating based on last year. And then, once we have all the crop plans, I'll make a spreadsheet with, every single crop. There's 5 broccoli in this garden. There's 10 tomatoes. And then I can look when I'm in the greenhouse. Okay, I need, 72 broccoli starts. What do I have? And sometimes, there's time to like start more if you really need to, but usually I just start enough extra that it ends up working out. So it's a little bit of extrapolation and a little bit of actual data like coming together.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And did you know kind of all along that you were going to need to build your own greenhouse, or like, how did you make that work? It just seems like it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I did that from the beginning. It's always been one of my favorite parts of growing food, like working on the farms. I knew I loved being in the greenhouse and starting seeds. For whatever reason, that process I just really love. So it was I never really considered not doing it. And I started with one of those kits from Bootstrap Farmer It's just like a hoop house kit. You can get it for a couple $1,000, and then, you get some materials locally. Um, and I'm so lucky to have, the house with a little bit of land that I can put it on. Um, and yeah, so it was just kind of always in the plan. And it took, my husband helped me put it up. It took us, I don't know, maybe like a week to do. And I expanded it this past winter, which is another good thing about the hoop houses is you can always add on to them, and you can even move them if you need to. Um, so yeah, it's always been a part of what we do.
Yeah, I love that you're just feeling into like I love this part. Like this is a thing that like feeds me, so I'm going to grow the seedlings. And of course, it also makes a lot of sense for somebody growing a lot of vegetables because there's not a lot that we can do outdoors,
Right.
super early in the year. It's like pretty nice to be in a greenhouse, adding value to your business by growing your own seedlings out and having
Yeah.
a level of control.
Yep, totally. It's been really, honestly, a really good money maker, like selling a seedling that I grew myself versus buying and reselling from the nursery is has been a really good kind of supporter for the business. And then it's also great to, in January I can sit down and look through the seed catalogs and be like, I want to grow this variety and this variety. And I even have clients sometimes who send me seeds in the spring and are like, "Hey, can we grow these this year?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we got it. Like, just
Yep.
add it to the mix." So yeah, it's been really fun for me to do, like kind of life giving for me. Even still, I never really get burnt out of working in the greenhouse. I always enjoy it, and it's great to be able to have plants when we need them, the varieties that we need. It's worked out well.
Yeah, I can. It seems like it's a winning system, and every business has kind of got to figure that out on
Hmm.
their own. But the other thing that makes it really viable that I couldn't do in our situation is the fact that your greenhouse is on site, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So that's just a thing I want to point out as, for people kind of like weighing this consideration is your greenhouse like really convenient? Because
Yeah,
if you haven't grown out seedlings before on a larger scale, like it needs like daily care in my experience, right? So
definitely. Yeah, multiple times a day. So having it literally right there is amazing because yeah, I wake up in the morning. I don't have any of the automated vents or anything, so if it were off site and I couldn't get to it on a summer day until 9 a.m., everything would be fried inside. So
yeah,
having it in my backyard to water every morning, open it up, make sure everything's good is definitely an important part of the process. I will say I am trying to move it hopefully this winter offsite just to get a little separation of work and personal. And the in-laws are on the same lot, so I don't want to like, keep adding to it here, which it
yeah,
needs to be bigger. So I am gonna move it at some point, but Nantucket's a small island, so it's not going to be farther than 10-15 minutes down the road. So I guess I'll see what that's like once I get there. I'm sure it'll be a little bit more taxing.
yeah, growth is always comes with its newness and wading into uncharted territory and seeing if it works and readjusting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned that the clients who are working with you on maintenance, so they're filling out like a Google form, they're telling you like 1 out of 5 how much they like it. You obviously are dealing with a set garden and an amount of space, but this I this like crop planning process and kind of mapping out like this is going to go here and this is how many plants I'm going to need to fill in that space. And what is that like for you? How have you systematized that so that it doesn't feel like it's kind of you're having to rack your brain to figure it all out?
Yeah, it's definitely come with time, but I do have a pretty good system nailed down now. So every garden that we take care of, I use SketchUp for all of my CAD drawings and stuff. Um, so every garden we take care of has a layout on SketchUp, which allows me to do it to scale. and it's super easy. It's just like a 2D, pencil line drawing of the garden. So I have that every spring. I'll get the survey, I'll import it into Canva, which is where I'll kind of put in the text of, broccoli here, and then I'll put a line to divide the bed up, stuff like that. So it's SketchUp to Canva, which is super easy. I'll start off by looking at the property and knowing where's north, where's south, and that kind of helps me figure out where I want all my taller plants to grow. Also thinking a little bit about last year and where things were. We try to rotate things around, but as people know, if it's a small home garden, sometimes you're planting tomatoes in the same spot year after year, and usually it's okay. So I don't, put too much pressure on that, but I do think about that. And the plant spacing and stuff has really kind of just come with time. I'll say I start with long season crops. So I look through their survey and say, oh, they want tomatoes, winter squash, cucumbers. Let's figure out where those are going first. Then fill in the half season crops like the brassicas and the onions. And then the short season stuff like the lettuce can kind of fill in little spaces. So it is a little bit of a puzzle brain activity. And I would say each crop plan will probably take me, on average, maybe an hour, sometimes half an hour. So it's not too bad, but it has come with time in kind of knowing the garden, thinking of it in my head and looking at the 2D SketchUp drawing and knowing, oh, I know I can fit 4 broccoli there. It's come with time, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It really shows that, your veggies, because that is such a thing that I feel like separates like new gardeners from advanced ones, is like this intimate knowledge of where you can, succession plant over planting things so that things are coming in and things are coming out, and
right.
We don't have time for carrots in that bed, but we could get in another crop of hakurei turnips and things like that allow the garden to feel so productive. And I think that us foodscapers have an opportunity to really blow clients' minds with just how much can come out of the garden if you're running a tight succession plan and think about it well ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a big part of what I do and of what we do. And I'll say sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes maybe a client's leaving before I thought they did, because a lot of them are summer residents and, oh shoot, they're leaving. So they're not even going to get to enjoy these carrots. Or sometimes we show up and there's supposed to be, 6 broccoli here, but there's only room for 3. And then, so we're kind of always adapting to real life as well. But I think it does pay off to do the crop plan and think about it, even if it doesn't totally work out in real life.
Yeah. You said we there. I forgot to ask, how many people are on your team? Do you have a team? What's the makeup of Island Harvest?
Yeah, it's just me. And then I have a full-time team member named Gary. Shout out to Gary, because I'm sure he's going to listen to this. And then usually we'll have a part-time, like past 2 seasons, we've had a part-time helper as well. So just me, another full-time, and 1 part-time. And then for construction, I'm usually using subcontractor labor to help.
Subcontractor labor to help. But I see you doing all this, construction on your videos. So tell us about that process, because that is always a really great interest to people in terms of how to, get that support. That sounds like you're getting some support through subcontractors, but, not having to take on all the risk and investment of actually bringing these people onto your team. Hey friends, we are wrapping up the first portion of our interview here, but you can listen to the full episode inside the Foodscaper membership. Members get access to the complete episode, our full library of training videos, and a community forum where you can get feedback on your work and make professional connections as you build your edible landscaping career. Get that first month free at thefoodscaper.com/membership. And thank you so much for listening. Keep growing.